Hello, hello, hello. This is your girl, Shy, owner of Shy Right Personal Development and Consulting, and the founder of Healing for Her Ministry. So today I am going to be discussing boundaries, right? We hear it often. I come from a generation where I don't ever recall hearing the word unless it was in reference to someone outside of the home or, outside of family. But I'm going to share in a very quick but efficient way about the importance of boundaries, how to establish them, identify where they're needed, and all of that great stuff, right? So, talking about boundaries, as you know, I always have my notes. So, the first thing I want to say is when it comes to boundaries, no one is exempt. No one. Not your mom, your dad, your uncle, your kids, your spouse, creating them specifically for yourself. No one is exempt from boundaries. Boundaries allow healthy relationships to form. Boundaries allow you to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally. So there's a lot of benefits to boundaries. The downside of boundaries is when they're not used responsibly, or you are not committing to those boundaries, which then causes confusion and another layer of frustration. So I hear this often, what about this person? What about that person? And again, no one is exempt from boundaries. To be able to figure out what type of boundaries you need, take a moment to think about either that specific person or the situation that triggers you. And what about the situation and or the person or the people triggers you? Is it how they talk to you? Is it them getting into your personal space? Is it the demand that they put on you? Think about that. Like, what makes you mad when you think about a person, a situation, a thing? Once you have that in mind to yourself, because in most cases we've had this conversation, if they would just do this, that would be helpful. If they would stop doing this, that will be helpful. If I was only able to fill in the blank. So when it comes to boundaries, you want to have like I said, the thing, the person, the situation in mind, and then the resolutions that you came up for yourself that works for you. Those are your boundaries. So just to give an example, when I say no one is exempt, that's number one. Two, how to discover what type of boundaries are needed. Think about the situation or the people that affect you in a negative way, right? And then what you've come up yourself as the solution, right? So if someone wants to say, okay, well, let me just share my personal story, right? So I implemented boundaries immediately as I got older with my mother. If you don't know my story, we didn't have the greatest relationship. But as a young adult, actually coming into a young adult, because I actually started before then, it was just like, no, you can't talk to me like that. So you talk to me like that, I'm either going to walk away, ignore you until you're able to have a conversation with me that's respectful, and then we can have a conversation. But those were my boundaries. When you begin to yell and fuss and all that, I have to remove myself, because that's not good for my mental, my well-being, my emotional. That's not good. It triggers me to want to act or respond in a negative way, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So, and maybe a good majority of us have seen the I don't know if it still comes on, but the show with addiction, and then people will come do oh my gosh, y'all know what I'm saying, when everybody get together and let them know I'm no longer going to help you. And so today I'm basically implementing this boundary. When you call me, I'm going to say no, or you no longer can call me for X, Y, and Z. It's intervention, intervention. It's the same thing. You know what's best for you. Implement that. I don't care who people are. No one gets to talk to you in a way where it makes you feel less than, where it makes you angry, where it makes you sad. No one gets to do that. And when you're an adult, you definitely have the right to say, you know what? I've tried this way so many years and it's not serving me. It's not serving me in where I'm at in my life. So I would love to have a relationship with you. But for me, this cannot be a part of our relationship. And so I understand people do not change overnight. But when we have a conversation and it escalates and you begin to call me out of my name, you begin to speak to me aggressively, you begin to point your fingers in my face, I'm going to remove myself out of that moment and remove myself from your life until you can let me know that you're not able to do that. And then some people may say, well, I can't completely remove them out of my life because they help me out with my kids, or they, I'm going to see them, I live with them, whatever it may be. It's still not impossible. It's still not impossible. We show people how to treat us based on an exchange, what we give, what we receive, what we tolerate, what we say is okay. Then that person, oh, okay, I can do this to them because they've let me know that that's okay. So if we can do that, don't think it's impossible to do the reverse. Even if you didn't know and now you know, or it was fine 2 years ago and now you're like, that's not okay. You can set boundaries. Setting boundaries, it's necessary and it's beneficial. So no one is exempt. We're identifying the person, situation, whatever it is that triggers us. We're going over what we said. Okay, well, if they didn't do this, this would be the fix. So creating your own boundaries based on the things that trigger you. And then lastly, implementing that boundary. Now, in the perfect world, you can have a conversation with someone and say, you know what? I don't like the way you talk to me. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but you don't talk to me, you talk at me. And it makes me feel less than, it's degrading, and it makes me not want to be close to you. In a perfect world, we can have these conversations. And a normal world, some people may be open to it, some people may not hear you out at all, whatever the case may be. If you're able to have the conversation, great. You explain it, you let them know what your response is going to be to the situation, and you let it be. You made them aware, you set your boundary. Your job is to be consistent and stick with that boundary. Because again, if you put that in place, right? And that's what you're doing for, a couple days, a few weeks, and then you begin to let them slide. They, talk to you crazy and, disrespectful, and you don't say anything, and then you keep coming back. That's not you being consistent, and that's not you standing your ground. So what you're doing is letting that person know, oh, that was just temporary what they told me. They were just having a moment. They created these boundaries, but I still get to do what I want to do. Not so. So you, as the person implementing, establishing those boundaries, you have to stick with your boundaries and be consistent. For those that will not be able to have the conversation, that means nothing, because guess what? The only thing and the only person you can control is you and what you do, right? You and your actions, your behavior, right? And so if you try to tell the person, or you saying they're not going to hear it regardless, you make the changes and adjustments. So let's just say, you just someone you still hang out with, but you let it be known or tried to, when you act in this type of way, I don't like it. I don't feel safe. I don't like the way it makes you look. So when that person does that, you remove yourself. You remove yourself. Even if you live in the same home, you can remove yourself. You can digress mentally. You can let people know, no, I'm not going to have this conversation with you in this way, and give them time to think about it, calm down, never come back to you to have the conversation, whatever it may be. Don't think of it as so big and make it so impossible before you see that it's possible, whether you live in the same home with someone or whatever. Boundaries are necessary and they are okay. People, and then if someone lets you know, "Oh, that's disrespectful," you can know respecting myself is not disrespectful. Taking care of my my emotional and my mental well-being, it's not disrespectful. Me allowing people to treat me a way that I don't like, that's disrespectful to myself. Sometimes we're just missing those conversations and those, things that we it's sometimes hard to say depending on who the person is. And you could be the first one in your family sticking up or saying something, but whatever the case is, as I always say, do what is necessary for you. Do what's necessary for you. So I'm gonna go back over these in reference to boundaries. Remember, no one is exempt. To be able to discover who needs the boundaries or what type of boundaries they may be. Think about the things that trigger you or the people and the situation surrounding that, right? Come up with what will work best for you. That's your boundary. If you say, okay, I'm not telling you to change, but if you do this, that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to exclude myself. I'm not going to come around. Or I will not hang out with you in that type of environment. Whatever that is, you establish that because that's what works for you. Then you implement the boundary. You do it. You do what you say. Say what you mean and mean what you say. You do it. And then you remain consistent with it. That's all I have. But yeah, boundaries. Get some.